Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. You can see people filtering in. I'll give the session a minute just to let people filter through from the waiting room. But great to see so many of you joining us this afternoon. We're very sort of happy and excited to see you and to share a little bit more of our panelists' diploma experiences. So let's see. We'll just wait one more second. See how we go. Okay, so I think we will begin. So welcome everybody to this afternoon's Executive Diploma information session. We're focusing this afternoon on some of the inspirational women that make up our diplomas community. My name is Kate Richards-Whitworth and I'm Associate Director in Recruitment and Admissions for the Diploma portfolio. I've been working at the business school and indeed across this portfolio for the past nearly 6 years. I've worked across and recruited for all 5 of the Executive Diplomas. I love the programs, I love the people, and I'm very excited to be with you this afternoon to run this session. We will get started with the panel discussion in a couple of minutes. I just have a little bit of information about the programs that I thought I would share to start with. So if I could have the next slide, please, that would be lovely. So as I'm sure most people who have joined the call this afternoon are aware, we have a portfolio of 5 executive diplomas. We run diplomas in artificial intelligence for business, financial strategy, global business, organizational leadership, and strategy and innovation. The programs are part-time, they are modular, and they are master's level. So an executive diploma is an EQF level 7 accredited qualification. They're academically rigorous, but they're also designed as entirely practical qualifications, and hopefully our panelists this afternoon will be able to tell us a little bit about that as we move through the session. Programs, as I say, run part-time. The majority of our programs run in person, though we do run one online diploma in strategy and innovation that launched last year. So it's in its infancy, but a very exciting development and going very well. For 2026, our diplomas will begin between January and March, and the programme fee for those programmes is just over £34,000 at £34,310. Next slide, please. Thank you. For anybody who is still considering an application for the programme or who is working on one, I thought I would also include a quick reminder of the application requirements. So in terms of admission to any diploma programme, we look for at least 5 years of relevant work experience. We look for at least an upper second class undergraduate degree or equivalent, and we look for English language proficiency. Diploma programmes are taught, delivered and assessed entirely in English, so that's very important. We don't need a GMAT or a GRE score, which I think is sort of always a benefit. And in order to put your application together, we need to see a copy of your CV, we need to see a copy of your academic transcripts. So those are transcripts for any tertiary level qualification that you hold, from undergraduate degree to present day. We need 2 references, at least one of which needs to be professional, and there are 2 short essay questions to work through as well as part of the application process. For 2026 diplomas, this session I think comes at quite a nice time. We have our first application deadline and scholarship application deadline coming up next week on the 30th of June. I am being supported on this call by a number of colleagues in the background who will be very happy to answer any administrative questions that you might have about sort of either the diploma programs themselves or the application process. So please do pop those into the chat or the Q&A, and my colleagues in the background will be very happy to help with those. So that's a little bit of housekeeping in terms of the diploma programs, in terms of what brings us here this afternoon. But the most important part of the session, the part that I'm most excited to get to, is our panel discussion. So if I could have the next slide, please. I am very happy to introduce our panel of three speakers this afternoon, three of the wonderful women who make up our diploma programme community. Hiba Sanduka completed the Executive Diploma in AI for Business in 2022. Molly Eliasov completed the Executive Diploma in Organisational Leadership in 2023. And Claire Dichter completed the Diploma in Financial Strategy in 2021. I'm extremely happy to have them all here with me this afternoon. I'm going to ask them each in a second to come off of mute and to introduce themselves very briefly, and then we will work through some questions. For anybody who's on the call, if you have any questions kind of across the rest of the session, do also pop those either into the chat and the Q&A, and we will and we'll do our best to pick up as many of those as we can. So in terms of introductions, let's go in terms of my screen. Let's start with Hiba, as you are in top left. Thank you so much.
Hey, Kate, thank you so much for having me. And first of all, I start with my name. My name is Hiba Sanduka. I live in United Arab Emirates. I'm Jordanian. I work in technology sector. I'm a vice president of special projects. I've been lucky to be part of the diploma in AI in 2022. By profession, I'm an engineer. I have an MBA as well. And I'm so happy to be part of this panel. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, Hiba. And Molly, we'll come to you next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly. I'm based in New York City. I did the wonderful program of the Diploma in Organizational Leadership, and now I'm doing the Executive MBA at Oxford. Because of that, I'm sure I'll share a little bit more. I am a trained psychotherapist, but I mainly do executive coaching and leadership development at this time in industries such as finance, healthcare, and entertainment.
Thank you, Molly. Wonderful to have you with us. And Claire, last but by no means least.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Dichter. As Kate said, I am Director of Strategy and Policy at the National Energy System Operator here in the UK. I'm a regulatory policy specialist in the energy sector by background, and have worked in the energy sector in the UK for coming up to 25 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Claire, keep your microphone switched on, as I think we'll come back to you for the beginning of our discussion. And I just wanted to start off, I think, sort of, anybody who is considering executive study kind of at any level and at any institution thinks about it quite a lot before they take the plunge. And I just wanted to start our conversation off with asking you what it was inspired you to pursue an executive diploma, and what were you hoping to gain from that experience when you did join us?
So there were a few things really. I've always liked learning and challenging myself. So I was just at that stage of my career where I was thinking I really want to do something to kind of supplement my job, if you like, and stretch a bit more. I was in a role at the time which was running corporate strategy for the UK for National Grid Group, where we were just commencing, we had just taken a portfolio strategy through the board, and we were just about to commence a whole load of M&A deals. And I just don't have much background in finance. I'm not massively financially literate. Found that when I was in conversations, the language I didn't understand, didn't understand a lot of the background to it. So looked around to see whether there was some kind of executive level education that I could do that would give me quite an in-depth immersion into that area, really supplement what I was doing at the time, but really help my CV as I was looking forwards to kind of progressing in my career further. I also always wanted to study in Oxford as well. I'd sort of looked at it for my undergrad, but for various reasons hadn't done it. And having looked around at the different options that were available, ended up applying into the programme I did at Said, having been to something similar like this actually, which convinced me that it was the right thing for me to do, because it had the mix of academic rigour, the amazing environment at Oxford and the network that you get from such a diverse cohort.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Heba, let's come to you now, just because sort of Claire's perspective on that finance element. I wonder if it's not a million miles away from your perspective on artificial intelligence and its application in business.
I mean, we share lots of similarities when it comes to the drivers behind taking an executive diploma. But for me, I'll start with the fact that Oxford was a childhood dream. I mean, it's Oxford. So I live in the Middle East, and it wasn't really feasible at this age of time to go to Oxford, although I had all the needed grades. But days passed, and a friend of mine actually enrolled in the diploma in strategy. He was actually one of the first people to be part of the program, and he spoke highly of it. He says that it was a life-changing event for him. So the time as well when I wanted to enroll in it, it was full of AI fever. So the world was basically, the hype was real. And I really felt I'm left behind, although I'm working in the technology sector. Because you reach a moment when you are really busy with your family responsibilities, whenever even you're more senior, you are so busy with your job. So I felt I'm not developing. I felt I'm stagnant when it comes to continuous learning and education. So I thought that I have to go through some kind of formal learning from an accredited institution, which is authentic and would give me a seal of approval, basically. And what's better than Oxford? Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Heba. Finally, Molly, what was your inspiration or your driver for joining an Oxford Executive Diploma?
So again, a lot of overlap. I echo what was said previously, slightly differently. I had been running my business for a long time on my own and felt really successful in it. I had kind of gotten everything I had wanted from it. I could scale it more, but I had this desire to do something else. Like I wanted further learning, not only on what I could apply to my business, but I felt like my career might have multiple levels ahead of it. And I felt not primed for that. I had all the education in that specific area around psychotherapy. I had been launching executive coaching work, but I felt like I wanted more leadership understanding for the executive coaching work, but also because I knew I wanted to do more leadership work myself in the future. And I felt like I just needed not only more of a base of education, but a community of people who were equally as hungry and eager to learn and develop themselves, especially as leaders. And it was really important to me to be surrounded by others who wanted that and that would propel me to do that and then learn from their experience. So it was really important, especially I decided in the heart of COVID, I really wanted to do this. I knew that propelled me for more. I think many of us felt that way, and we're sitting on our hands for a long time, depending on your career, obviously, and what was happening. But I felt really lucky to find Oxford also for that global element that I felt in New York and the States, I just wasn't being exposed to as much as I wanted to.
Okay. And that actually leads quite nicely, Molly, into another question that I have, which is, have you seen sort of any changes in your career or your organization as a result of your learning? Have you been able to put that learning to use in the way that you were hoping?
100%. I mean, so all of my leadership development work is helping leaders figure out how to lead more effectively. And so every element, not only was I learning to help my own business develop, my own team develop, but I was really also handing it over to clients. And then that was impacting their organization and businesses as well, which was hugely important to me because my goal in life is to always increase impact and serve further. And so I got to see that directly for their organizations and mine. But also I got to see it through, like I mentioned before, my ability to get into the EMBA program, get a scholarship, which I feel really, really honored for, and stay more deeply in the Oxford family, which has allowed me to connect to professors and like brilliant minds of other alumni who have helped me think about research projects and papers I want to write and ways I can take what I'm doing and impact on a greater scale.
Fantastic. Just to put the same question to Claire, have you sort of made any changes since you were following and finishing your diploma?
Yeah, I definitely. So the role I was doing at the time was massively helpful and actually allowed me to get involved in more broader things than I would have done otherwise, because the diploma gave me just this kind of knowledge and the language and the terminology that I hadn't got. I've actually, since I finished the diploma, secured an executive position at the National Energy System Operator, which I am now, which is, largely due to that financial literacy and understanding just gave me that additional bit on my CV that allowed me to sit at the executive level of an organisation and do that role, as well as being, a kind of specialist operational director, which I was before.
Fantastic, thank you, and congratulations. Hiba, would you have anything to feed in there as well?
Basically, the diploma was the catalyst behind shifting me to a new domain and work, which is required at that point in time a deep understanding of data insights, AI applications, and all. It was a shift. It was a title upgrade, which enhanced my resume for sure. But in general, in learning, there's no silver bullet. So it's a continuous process. So the diploma in AI, even if it doesn't grant this upgrade in a title, it will give the network, the leads, the opportunity to, again, exchange with smart people, and you understand more the environment and the ecosystem around you, and expanding your knowledge into other verticals and industries. And this is really the true benefit that I as well gained from the diploma. It's very personal how you eventually benefit from it, but be sure that you will definitely benefit.
That's good. I can see you nodding there, Molly. I don't know if you'd have anything sort of additional then to feed in on that point.
Yeah, I mean, brilliance around me as per usual, which goes to my point. One of the reasons why I fell in love with the Oxford experience, besides all the childhood dreams of Oxford, is everyone in the room was smarter than I was in some way, was eager to learn as much or if more than me, and was humble. And that was really unique to Oxford. I felt like I was in the room with people who were willing to just kind of lay their multiple PhDs aside and say, what else can I learn? How else can I grow? And that was tremendously beneficial, and still is, both interpersonally, I can hold on to that element in my own learning, how I carry myself in a room, but also to be able to learn with people who are eager to take down the walls and really go, what else can I gain here? Super special about the community.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit more then about that kind of idea of community. And I was interested in picking that up, particularly in relation to working as a woman and working as sort of women in senior leadership positions. The Oxford community and the diploma community, I'm glad you've all found to be sort of a supportive place. It's one of my favourite parts of the programmes that we run and the work that we do. But thinking a little bit more generally, sort of as well as, but also outside of the Oxford community, do you have a sense of sort of what kind of role that or sort of your community has played in your development as a woman across your career and into senior leadership? I don't know, Hiba, if we might start with you on that one.
Yeah, mute myself. So women actually are facing universal challenges when it comes to gender gap and acceptance and the glass ceiling. And we still have a long way to go, actually, as females. So engaging with peers in the diploma as well, who come from different places, from different industries, who are sharing the same level of ambition while facing very similar challenges in their work setup, in their professional setup, is extremely encouraging and supporting, because you learn from their experiences, you get some comfort in knowing that you're not alone, basically, and you share that you have, you understand that the world needs to take more serious steps, more bold and serious steps towards fixing those issues. So women are capable of thriving as leaders, and you see it around you in the room. You see amazing people, as Molly just said. You see smarter people, and you know that they are every day dealing with implicit biases. They're dealing with judging assertiveness. They're dealing with double standards. And so having a network of strong women truly supports you, because they understand those dynamics. They understand, they give you honest conversations. They even celebrate your win. And that was really very important for me in my journey. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Claire, I can see you nodding. What does that sort of idea of community mean to you?
Yeah, it's huge. I'm one of the special diplomas where we did a lot of ours during COVID. So we only really met in person towards the end, and actually not everyone did meet in person because of the travel restrictions that were still in place. So I think our graduation was actually the first time that a lot of us had met in person. But we still have a hugely supportive community. And I agree with Molly, with what Molly said, actually. There's kind of the learning community where, you're sat in this room, either virtually or in person, with these hugely impressive people, like a real diverse set of people from around the world who've all been really successful in their careers, quite intimidating in terms of what they know. But everyone in that room at some point is sitting there going, I've broadly got no idea about what this lecture is covering at the minute. And the willingness of people to come together and help, because there is always someone in the room as well who does really get it. And there's just this willingness to kind of share learning and help each other. And everyone genuinely wants everyone to come out of the diploma with their diploma. And it goes much broader than that. So, people have got their lives, they've got their, most people are still working full-time roles as well. So people do come up with challenges. And actually, there's been a real community sense in my group of people helping them through that. And, we've had some people through the diploma who, for one reason or another, have really questioned whether they want to carry on, and everyone's sort of lent in and helped them and said, we'll help. How can we get you through? How can we do this? And to the point now where we still got a WhatsApp group where we talk to each other all the time, and we all met each other's children at graduation. We share photos on the WhatsApp and things. Like, it's a real tight knit support group. It's great, and it makes such a difference because there are times when it is hard. Just being able to put a message on a group, or talk to someone at dinner whilst you're in person at one of the courses and say, I am really struggling, this is really difficult. There's always someone who's willing to lean in and help.
That's great. And Molly, I know we picked up on that question sort of based on a point that you made, but do you have anything to add in terms of the community that you've been a part of?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, if I can remember both things, two things popped into my head while both of these ladies were speaking, which is one, I got lucky enough. Some of our cohort was here in New York and came to visit. We tried to do a reunion just this weekend. And within maybe 5 minutes of seeing them, we were talking about politics and religion and our careers and our family. And there was a desire to, again, take the walls down, and not only with being able to relate with other women, but also men who are willing to say, I don't know what's happening here, or I could challenge, in your culture, what would this mean if I said this directly or indirectly? And how do we understand each other, which not only helps, just develop us as humans, but also as we do a lot of global business, most of this community, you start to learn more about what is expected of me. How do I understand and be more receptive and more engaged? And I would definitely echo the WhatsApp group is strong for me too. And one of the things that's really beautiful is because people are all over the world and in all different industries, people will say, I'm in Mongolia right now. Do you have a place to stay? Or I'm about to present at the UN. Does anyone know someone else who wants to come and sit in and see the experience? And it's amazing what people are willing to give and also share through the community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We've actually just had a question sort of pop up in the Q&A that is sort of asking about the opportunity to meet professionals from different sectors sort of across the diploma programme, and whether you've been able to continue to make sort of the best of those connections after the modules and after the programme. I mean, I'll come to each of you in turn, but do you feel that you're part of a broader professional community sort of as a result of taking a diploma programme? Molly, why don't you finish that final point and then we'll...
Sure, no problem. Yeah, I mean, absolutely would be the answer. And in many ways that keep growing. Oxford is overwhelming in the way that it has resources. You can just keep finding more and more, from individuals to associations to sub-interest groups. And the more you're willing to dig and take your time to be just interested and I look at the relationship with Oxford as a lifelong one. How do I keep giving back? But also, how do I keep understanding more? There's so many smart people who are passionate about making change and doing something important or doing something profitable, whatever it is you're interested. And there's someone for you to speak to. I mean, I literally have someone I network and who's a colleague who's outside of this space who said to me, hey, do you know so-and-so? And it's like one of my favorite professors. And it was someone they admired all of their research and what they wrote. This was like a superstar in their eyes. And it was someone who's accessible and humble and willing to chat to anyone. And I have found that as the experience with almost everyone I've met from Oxford.
That's fantastic. Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I think like on lots of different levels. So the spread of industries and interest in my cohort was huge, and there's definitely been kind of advice. So people saying I'm doing this, or I'm thinking of getting into this field. Has anyone got any advice? And then the people that understand these areas offer it. And there's quite a little nice thing of like just boosting others up. So someone has a big business success or something, they put it on, and everyone else is like, amazing, or they're just like, oh, this thing is happening in my sector, it's a real big deal, like you should know about it. There's I agree on the networking as well. You can normally get to someone that you're trying to speak to through the group. And I think we've actually had people in our group as well who've set up business ventures or gone into investments together as well after meeting on the course.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we've seen across the diploma programs. Your last point there, Claire, makes me think of that 6 degrees of separation. You know,
Yeah.
how are you from anybody in the world at any one time, depending on who you know. Ahiba, how about you?
The WhatsApp group, yes, still up and running and extremely active, especially last week with the announcement of the hiring of some of our colleagues. I'll come to that. But the connections are not only limited to the colleagues, because our professors really open the door for us as well to meet unbelievably huge array of interesting people. You meet people you see being interviewed on CNN and BBC, and you get to meet those people, even contact them because of our professors. So we have people in our cohort who are leading in multiple interesting sectors. You have nuclear, you have now one of our colleagues last week was appointed as the head of MI6. So Blaise was one of the people who were with me in the cohort. So extremely interesting group of people who till date are communicating, asking for suggestions, asking for recommendations. And we had 3 student-led cohort organized in Jesus College. So we meet every year in April. And now we have also another time to meet next year in April, because we are benefiting from each other. Last time we met in April, I took the lead from one of the amazing startups that was presented in the session, and I introduced it to my company to different verticals, because it's extremely interesting and it's led by one of our own. So the connection is strong and the network is real. And this is what you get from SBS.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, that was very exciting news for everybody at SBS last week to see Blaise's appointment. So let's think about. I have a couple of other questions that I'll come back to. And Maya, I hope that was a helpful answer to your question. And thank you very much for it. But I wanted to touch on. You've all, I think, sort of touched on in one or more of your answers the demands of the diploma program. And that's not something sort of I know that. That any of you it's not a decision that any of you will have kind of taken lightly to join us. But in terms of the challenge that it does represent, how did you manage that sort of alongside your leadership responsibilities and your personal commitments as well? Claire, I don't know if we could maybe come to you first on that one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we shouldn't pretend that it's not, difficult to think about how you will work differently to do it. Like it's, as has been mentioned a few times, like it's a big deal doing the diploma. It's very well thought of. It does have a level of rigor applied to it, so you have to put the effort in. It's not something that you can sign up for and then like not really do it. Having said that, there is some flexibility in that. I certainly had times during the year that I was studying where, for one module in particular, it just coincided with a hugely busy time at work, and I did less in that module than others. Other modules, I sort of, I was very much in this is just for a year. I'm gonna, as much as you put into it, you get out of it. And I did loads and loads of extra reading. For one of the modules, I didn't. I did less, but spent my time more wisely, if that makes sense. So I spent my time talking to other people on the cohort and kind of got the download of their things to make up for like all the extra reading and stuff I couldn't do. I do think you need, if you're doing it alongside employment, you do need a really clear agreement with your employer or with yourself, if you're self-employed, about what you're going to do. Like the temptation always is to nip out and do a call or something, and you just won't get the most out of it. You do need to immerse yourself into it when you're in person for the courses, and then you need to put the time aside. Similarly with your family, like it is a time commitment, and you unless everyone has all of those hours of free time, you do make some choices about where you're going to spend things. But I found that sort of thinking about how I was going to do that up front, and then making those commitments with my family and friends at home, and then with my employer as well, meant that I managed it. But then and a little bit of flexibility when things inevitably happen in life, as they do, just to work around it works.
Okay, that's good. Heba, how about you?
Okay, so I wouldn't claim it was easy, but it was manageable, to tell you the truth, because I just needed to plan my time well ahead of time, considering my commitments. The diploma is not as demanding as people would think when it comes to physical presence or studying day and night. They give you ample time between modules to read, to prepare, and to do reviews. And even when we get the assessment, we have a full week in order to submit our assessments. And they are flexible. The flexibility is key about the program. I know that some people even are attending Zoom calls or are attending online whenever they can't come. I personally chose to go to Oxford for the Oxford experience, but there are ways. All lectures are recorded. So even if you have to take a call within the module, you can just step outside and you will see the call recorded or the session recorded, and you can attend it later. So I planned my time that whenever I come from Oxford, I spend 1 week just literally looking at all the recordings of the sessions. I take notes on things and see gaps in my knowledge. So I really planned it well. And also they post like questions from previous years, so you have some sort of guidance. And I go and structure my research around whatever was shared in terms of previous assessments and notes. And eventually you get it. So when you reach the assessment time, you feel you are absolutely ready. So don't be afraid from the module requirements, because it actually depends on you. If you want to expand further your knowledge, it's about you reading more and getting more knowledge, especially if you are unaware of the background of the topic. But eventually you get it and you can fit it within the schedule. No homeworks, no things to do in between the modules. So it is really manageable.
Great. Thank you, Heba. And Molly, how did you find that part of the process?
So two different things. One is, and this is an example of how cool this experience, this community is, because I just learned a new strategy that I did not use. That's awesome how planful you were. Like, bravo. I am very on the go. So I found tools like Natural Readers, which is something you can like download PDFs and get it into audio. So I would walk to work or I would walk to a fitness class and I would be listening to the materials. And so, people are smart and they're adults. And so, we share with each other, how do you make this work for you? So it's super supportive in that way too. And people are adaptable with their approach here. I had to do assessments in between, so I'm really jealous that you didn't have much homework in between. But you make it work. And I agree with what Claire also said earlier, which is you decide how much you want to do for yourself. Oxford is not grading you, at least in my cohort, on how much you raise your hand. It's really on, what are you gaining from this material? That tended to be the message that I heard over and over again, is we want you to take this and then be able to apply this. So, it's how hungry you are to get that depth of knowledge. A lot of my cohort read after, again, all the material. So after they had taken in the cohort's feedback, the professor's feedback, they wanted to reread, rethink, redigest. I don't know if we're going to get to the FIA. I had to write an FIA at the end, which is like a final paper, and I'll pause in minimal commentary because if you're going to go there. But people have expanded that into books, and so your papers, your work can be something for you, your career, and something that you can use in your career to develop yourself. So it's just, again, how much you want to get out of it.
We do have a question, Molly, that relates to that final interrogative assignment, so I will come back to that. But I also have a little additional question for you. There's somebody online who's completed a diploma, which is wonderful, and is interested in how you found the transition from that from your diploma to the Executive MBA, and how the question is, would you recommend it? And I always wonder, to what extent can we recommend any of these experiences, but except that we do. But it would be great to hear just a little bit more from you about how that's going for you.
Sure. So I'm new in it. So I started in January. So I'm only like a quarter of the way through. So you have to take that bias into account. It was a no-brainer for me. Honestly, I left the diploma during graduation. I remember thinking over and over again, like, I'm not done here. Like, I want more here. I want to learn more. I want to go deeper with the community. I want to go deeper with Oxford itself and understand how much research is going on. I wanted more, and I wanted to develop myself more. And so the EMBA felt really interesting in terms of deepening my business education. Again, I was surrounded by all these brilliant people, a lot of whom had an MBA. And I wanted one too. It's something I've wanted for myself, a formal business education since my undergrad. So it just felt right. It felt like the right supportive community. I felt like I was going to get the right in-depth global knowledge that I really wanted. And it's been amazing. It's been more intense than the diploma. If you want to message me separately, I'm happy to speak to you. But it's been amazing, and I would love to do a PhD at Oxford. I'd love to keep going because it's so special.
Fantastic, thank you, Christy. I hope that helps you a little bit if you're considering the same pathway. But do get in touch if you are. And then coming back to those FIAs, which I hope isn't a phrase that still sends shivers down your spines, your collective, or individual or collective. But we have actually a really nice question in relation to the FIA that is asking, were you able to address real life challenges that were faced by your organisation? Which obviously is one of the things that the FIA is kind of there to achieve, and I think is a really good example of the applicable nature of the diploma programme, and the extent to which I've always thought that one of the most important parts of the process is the learning process is the translation of what you're learning in the classroom out to what you're doing. I'm kind of in the real world. But Heba, would you be able to tell us a little bit about sort of what your FAA sort of looked at and how that process evolved for you?
Very beautiful memory. Not scary at all. So it was extremely interesting because the professors emphasized the need to have it as practical as possible. So the challenge was really finding an interesting idea which brings benefit to our working setup. And this is what I've done. I actually had internal discussions with colleagues in my organization, not necessarily in my department, but I had an area which I know was problematic one, and an interesting case study, which wasn't even part of the context that we've discussed within Oxford. And I used that one as an idea for my final assessment or for my integrated project. So the feedback I got, thankfully, I got a distinction for my final assessment. And the feedback I got was very interesting because it was commended, the idea as such. They said it's a unique idea at that point in time, which is, I'm honored to receive such feedback from our professors. So, yeah, I mean, you think about it, the key thing is to find an idea, a real life problem in which you really want to implement AI. No one is asking for a theoretical scenario, really. Try to find something which is a problem, and then do the usual standard things like a literature around it, the benefits, and then what you will do truly to implement it. So it's as if it's a challenge that you're getting from your boss, and it's a real life work example. So that what happened to me, and thankfully it went well.
Great. And Claire, how did you find your FIA? What was your FIA experience?
Well, so I was dreading the FIA because I did DipFS, so the financial strategy. One of the modules is modelling effectively and valuations and things. And I was quite concerned about doing the financial, any kind of financial assessment. I actually I mentioned that I was working in corporate strategy for National Grid Group at the time, and we were doing the Lady M&A deals. I actually ended up valuing one of the companies or one of the parts of the company that we were divesting for my FIA. So I did a whole valuation. I sort of saying this in case there's anyone on the call who was thinking about doing the financial one and worrying about the modelling. So I prefer words. Like, I would rather be a lawyer than an accountant. I took the model that our partners were using internally, used that as the basis of my FIA, but then interpreted all of the results and then put the valuation and the strategy around it. The reason I'm being really specific about that is that I didn't do financial modelling in my FIA. I took a financial model that existed, I wrote it, and I also got a distinction for my FIA. I actually had to submit it under all sorts of protections because we were in the middle of a commercial deal at the minute, and it was valuing that deal. But I've used it. I ended up transferring into that organisation that we were divesting, which is where I now work. And I still use the material for my FIA now, 2+ years later.
That's amazing! Wow. And Molly, how about you and your FIA? Are you still friends?
I concur. It was more than I thought it would be in terms of a process. And I honestly wish I gave myself more time to enjoy it. I feel like that would have been the biggest advice I would have given myself to go back. So I was really interested. We were reading obviously a lot of literature and leadership. And I was really interested about leadership and finance because that's a big base of my clientele. And I felt like the literature didn't match what I was seeing. And so I was just curious. I just wanted to know kind of like what's missing from this literature and why. And they gave a real, for at least our FIA, a real open door to like explore what interests you and then go deep in that. And so I decided to interview a bunch of finance leaders from all over the world and really ask in depth about their experience in leadership and leadership development to hear for those details. I shared all of that detail because I got most of those interviews through WhatsApp groups. Honestly, I went into the Oxford community and went, I need to speak to someone who's in Asia, who's in London, who is available, who would like to speak about this. Does someone know someone? And literally in 5 seconds, I had all that data. So it was really a great example of how wonderful the Oxford community is, how knowledgeable they are. And it was fun. It was daunting and I wish I had more fun, but it was a really special project for sure.
That's great. And just kind of one follow-up question there. How did you feel supported from within the Oxford academic community when you were completing those longer pieces of writing? I know for diploma FIAs, we don't work with assessment supervisors, sort of in the same way as a dissertation supervisor. But did you feel that you had access to and support from your professors?
Totally. I'm happy to jump in there. The head of our program sat down with almost all of us one-to-one and said, what do you want to write about? Here's where I see holes. Here's where this could be really effective. And then also would say, like, you should speak to so-and-so. This is the professor in this niche thing. Let me introduce you. And so again, Oxford is a wealth of resources that people are very generous to give and share. I'm going to reach out to both these ladies right here. These are two more people that I'm meeting in the world. Like it is an amazing community, and the support is definitely there.
That's fantastic. Claire or Heba, I don't know if you'd have anything to feed in there on support.
I mean, I personally, Claire, I'm sorry I started. I mean, it's absolutely, the support is extended all the time. We have our professors on the WhatsApp group as well. So they always answer, they always support, and they are approachable. You can reach them at any point in time. Even you can see them in SPS buildings. So the support is there and it's real. It's not like any other university, honestly. So, and they are humble, down to earth. You see a professor who's getting an award, like you remember Andrew Stephen, and he's getting an award, he's been promoted, and he's still approachable and answering people. So yeah, I mean, you will get all the support you need throughout.
Fantastic. Claire, would you disagree with anything there?
No, I'd agree with all of that. Like, support's amazing. And actually in the community as well. So I after I finished my diploma, I actually sent someone who worked for me to go and do DIPSI, the strategy and innovation one. And I spent quite a lot of time with her, and I know other people have done similar, where they've previously done a diploma and then they've helped someone who's going through one at the time to like really hone in their question, or, that sounds great what you're doing, but you're creating yourself a massive task there. If you make it a bit smaller, a bit neater, you'll probably find it's easier.
Okay. That's great. And that this was a question that I wanted to loop back to before the end of the session, and that's kind of a loop in, and also going back, Claire, to what you said about it being important for applicants and participants to have sort of good working relationships with their employers, sort of around participation. This is a slightly larger question than just the diplomas, I think, but presuming, given that you all joined and completed diplomas, you had support from your organisations to do so. Are there any ways in which you think kind of organisations or employers could be doing better in that sense? Do you think you sort of saw any kind of examples of really good support for you kind of coming forward to join a programme of executive study? Claire, I don't know if we might start with you.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, actually, it'd be the one thing I would change looking back, in that I think partly because I did mine during COVID and everything was a bit up in the air then anyway, I can remember being in lectures and dealing with work emails at the same time, and it was a little bit the state of the world at the time.
Yes. Okay.
If I did it again, I would absolutely have a much clearer agreement with, like, I am out this week. Consider me on leave. I'm not, unless there's a major emergency, I'm out and not contactable. Looking across my cohort, there was some people were working full-time jobs in the day and then doing it overnight. Again, that was a COVID thing, so that wouldn't be normal. The people where they had that explicit agreement, they're just like, I'm in the UK this week, I'm out, I won't be doing it, were just able to immerse themselves a bit better. And I would definitely recommend that to people, and I would do that if I did it again.
How about Molly? Anything to share on that one?
Sure. My answer is going to be a little different because I've been predominantly self-employed. I do some consulting work for another company periodically, but when I was in there, I think this was said earlier, I wish I had a better agreement with myself. I think trying to decide moment to moment, week to week, on how much do I want to give to work versus be present was something I wish I pre-planned a little bit better. I did a lot of client meetings because I'm US based at night. So I would go through the stretch of class. There would be usually a dinner at night, and I would take like the hour break in between class and dinner to like meet with a client. And you're just stretched thin when you do that to yourself. And there's so much that you're like taking in all the time. You're taking in data, you're taking in your cohort's opinions about the data, you're taking in the professor's discussions. You're going into coffee breaks, which are amazing because you get to talk to everyone about their lives and their careers and what you want and what you thought about what was just said. But you are just flooded with data. And so being able to step back just to have space for that, to be mindful about digesting the learning, I wish I gave myself a little more room for it. But I think we're in a group of people who tend to be quite ambitious. This was the word used previously. And so it's also hard to slow that down, but it's something to consider.
And Hiba, how about you?
It wasn't easy, to tell you the truth. I mean, if submitting an annual leave isn't enough with a formal contract, then what is? But what happened to me is that I used to wake up 3 a.m. UK time because it's like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. UAE time in order to at least attend meetings or try to fulfill some of the duties that I have. Although I'm on official annual leave, which is approved by my boss. But it's worth it. Unfortunately, organizations are not giving as much flexibility as they are supposed to continuous learning and education. And the problem is, even if you disconnect, you have this mental stress or feeling guilty. But I would always say that it's my right. And I would always say that good leaders allow space for growth and allow space for personal development. So, yeah, although I had to use some of my time in Oxford to fulfill some of my duties, but eventually I was able to manage and I was able to enjoy the experience. And I wish that employers are more aware of the developmental needs of their staff, especially the leaders, because even if you go up within the hierarchy, it doesn't mean you don't need this personal space of self-doubt. You need it, and you need to be engaged with community beyond your professional network at work. You need this diversity and new perspective to things. So yeah, it might be hard. Organizations may not be ready, but you need to allow yourself that chance and try to accommodate.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Kind of as I say, that was a question that was a little bit beyond the diploma, but I think it's quite an important one. And then I have two more questions. I think we can fit them in before the end of the session. But they could both be a little bit quick fire, or we can expand a little bit more. We have a question from our attendees around whether there's one particular module for anyone that has stood out in terms of the impact that it's had for you. So we'll start with that one. And then I have a question about going back to your pre-diploma self, if you can remember them, and some advice that you would give yourself. So thinking about a module that's had particular sort of impact. Hiba, we might come back to you to see if there was one module that really sort of hit home for you in particular.
The beauty about the modules is that all of them are different. There is no module which is similar to the other. So each of the modules, you learn something completely new. The first one was extremely intimidating because it was the first experience within Oxford. We were so worried, we were anxious, and then we started really the learning process. Module 3 was the most difficult one, I'll be very honest. The easiest was module 4. Module 3 for me was the most difficult one, although I'm an engineer with a technical background and lots of knowledge on data and stuff. But it was quite difficult. I know I was afraid of the exam, literally of the assessment, basically. But I'm glad I nailed it. And it was also a distinction module for me, probably because I was so afraid and I really did an extra work for that one. But yeah, I mean, all of them are special. But the most difficult one for me was module 3.
Claire, how about you? I feel like you've touched on this a little bit, but just
the financial modelling one. I think, although I was gobsmacked that I passed that one, but it's probably been the most impactful in terms of like really helping me go forward. The one theme across all of them, I don't really have a favourite module, but the guest speakers that were in all of the modules, and I think that just comes back to Oxford's reach and the networks and things, and the ability to bring in these like really inspirational, like super inspiring. You can just make some of the stuff that you're talking about come to life. This was my favourite part.
Fantastic. And Molly, how about you?
Yeah, similarly, I think all the learning was super interesting and it was really special that it was so diverse. I think for me, there were two modules that really stood out. One of the ones was taught by a professor who had a really similar educational background as me and also professional background as me, but had done more than I have in different ways. And I was really curious to just kind of learn how this got integrated, their knowledge and experience into becoming a professor. And she sat down with me after and talked a ton about it. And the other one would be, there was a lot of leadership development stuff, which is obviously a personal interest of mine. And the professor, again, I had a conversation with about how the class was taught and how they gained from the material, where they thought there might have been gaps in the understanding. And then I was invited to come and guest lecture around it. So it's been really special to kind of go deep. Again, the space is so humble. People are so willing to go, what else can I learn from you, from the class? And that's just a really unique theme to Oxford.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Thank you all so much, Arshia. I hope that answers your question. And thank you very much for submitting it. So in that case, in our last a couple of minutes, because I have one or two more slides that I would like to share. But if you could go back in time, what would you tell your pre-diploma self about sort of with what you know now, having joined the program? I'm going to go around my screen again for this one, which means I will start with Hiba.
I'd say go for it. Don't hesitate. This is where you will create long life memories and you will change forever. Honestly, it's a leap of faith. Go for it. I'm a very strong advocate of SPS education, and I highly recommend it for the sense of purpose, for expanding boundaries, and really to become a better person. So highly recommend it.
That's good to hear. Claire, how about you?
Same. I say go for it. Like it's beyond what you could expect from it. It's just awesome. But also be realistic about how you're going to do the work. And if you're sitting there going, I'm going to find 16 hours a week that currently don't exist, you're probably not going to do that. So be realistic.
Thank you. Good advice. And Molly.
Yeah, so I'm going to echo the same thing. And actually, this was something I was thinking when the other person asked me about the EMBA question. I came and saw a panel of women just like us who had done the EMBA before I decided to say yes. And they all said what we're saying right now, which is it may make no sense on paper to your family, to your obligations. Your hands are probably already full, but it's worth it, and do it. If you think you want to do it, do it. Because again, this is something I'm going to carry with me for my whole life, and I'm going to keep investing. And it's another relationship that is just super fueling and fulfilling.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's been wonderful to see you all and wonderful to be able to talk to you and to get to know you and your experiences a little bit better. So I am Hiba has raised her hand.
Just saying that we are reachable on LinkedIn. Specifically, I always accept people to ask questions about SBS. So anyone who wants anything, please feel free to get more details about the program because, and we're available on LinkedIn and email.
Thank you, Hiba. That's really kind. And I hope, and for me, that's a fantastic example of the SBS community and the diploma community. It's welcoming, it's active, it's empathetic, it's everything that I think it should be, and that I hope and I imagine people are looking for as well. So Pagan, if you don't mind, I'm popping up my last couple of slides. For anybody who is and remains interested in joining an executive diploma, we would love to hear from you. My colleagues are sort of ready and waiting. I would imagine that many people on the call have sort of already been in touch with a member of the team, but do get in touch with them again if you need to. And if you're new to diploma programs, please do reach out. We would love to hear from you and to help you get started with your executive diploma journey. And then next slide, please. I just have one other event that I wanted to flag. as I said at the very beginning of this session, our first application deadline for 2026 diplomas, and in fact our scholarship deadline is coming up a week today on the 30th of June. We are running an application masterclass on Thursday of this week between 1 and 1:45 BST. So if anybody is midway through an application, if anybody is keen to start an application, please do come along, and my colleague Laura will sort of take you through the application requirements, and we'll also run a Q&A session as part of that, so you can ask any questions that you might have. And then finally, just a quick request from me. We're always looking to improve the events that we run. We run a lot of events. We love to meet people. We love to talk about what we do, but we want to make sure that we're doing that as best we possibly can. So if you do have time, just a couple of minutes to complete a feedback form for the event that you've joined today, I would really appreciate it. Aside from that, I will say one final and enormous thank you to my three panelists, and thank you to everybody who's taken time to join us this afternoon as well. Who knows, maybe one day we'll see three people who've been online this afternoon joining a panel of inspirational women. That would be really lovely. But thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.